Gillian never could sit still in class, feet tapping, fingers snapping, rhythms 1, 2, shoulders always bouncing and her head would groove, but the figures always stood stock still against the chalkboard. They were slick and silent and so slippery, her mind slid and skidded right off them. She loved to be called to the front because she meant she could finally lift out of her chair and float forward, toes flirting with the floorboards, but once she was there, she could never remember what it was she was supposed to be doing. The chalk shook against the board, out of rhythm, spell, castle, add 3 to 5, define freedom, and she could never get it right on the first try or on the second until she had to sit down, Gillian. The teachers tried to help her, but she made the others nervous, added agitation to the atmosphere, couldn't stop tapping, drove teachers to distraction, couldn't pass the first grade or the second, started to get nervous, and this made the tapping worse. Now it always came out of rhythm, so they had her fold her hands. Couldn't stop, hold the desk, couldn't stop, hold herself, but she would vibrate like a tuning fork, squirming out of the teacher's straitjacket stare. She never stopped moving. She's sick, the principal told her mother. So her mother took her to one of those men with glasses who know how to fix you, can put in a shiny little cage for those mice in your mind, can straighten your brainstem and snap it back to your spine, can always find a solution. Barely even looked at her, just asked her mother what was wrong with her, how long had she had this problem, and Gillian tried to sit on her hands, but she couldn't stop moving. Finally, the man said he needed to talk to her mother alone, and as he walked out, he turned on the radio and closed the door behind him and turned to Gillian's mother and said, "Watch." And they watched through that little glass window as the music crept along the desk and spilled off the edges and lifted Gillian right out of her chair. She turned slowly and raised her arms to cradle every bar as she spun. The arpeggios wiped all the dust out of her mind. Decades passed, thunderstorms crashed within her and washed all the nervousness out. She turned as if she knew what she was supposed to be doing, to find freedom with the lines of her elbows, trace the turrets of castles from an architect's prayer. She knew with every breath that 3 and 5 is just 8. Gillian never could sit still in dance class, loved to be called to the mirror to imitate every move, and more often than not, got it exactly right on the first try. Gillian never could sit still, period. The subway ride to the recital was its own performance. Each mile was 5,000 dance steps. She washed her hands in time, brushed her teeth like an opera when she needed to think. She moved a little more because she knew that thinking was moving, moving was living. Each step was only breathing, each pirouette just a pulse. At 90, Gillian never could sit still in her hospital bed. The doctors smiled like they heard the music, said she's a famous dancer. And even to the very end, she never stopped moving, leapt up to meet the angel of death in the doorway, grabbed him by the waist, and waltzed. So a little backstory on that poem. The woman is a real person. Her name is Gillian Lynn. She's a famous dancer and choreographer. She actually was the choreographer for Cats. And I actually heard about Gillian Lynn because of a TED Talk by Sir Ken Robinson, which I am sure many of you are familiar with. It's called Why Schools Kill Creativity. So I highly encourage you guys to check out that TED Talk. And I hope that, as for me, some of these TED Talks tonight will inspire you to do something of your own. Thanks a lot.